Alright, so we're going to do the law of cosines. And the law of cosines are not very difficult. It looks like a lot. If you just like look down here, it looks overwhelming. But there's kind of a pattern to it, and you'll catch on to it pretty quickly. But let's go over what the law of sines are again. So let me get my pen. Make sure I'm recording. Okay. So law of sines that we went over last was sine of capital A over A, sine of capital B over B, and sine C over C. And again, the image that I used here is the same in the last notes. So these are all the wrong type of letters. So this should be a capital C because it's an angle, lowercase because it's the sides. I'm going to fix this real quick. All right. So law of cosines looks kind of like a lot, okay? But there is a pattern going on. So if you notice, you have a squared, which is a side, equals, and then you use the two other sides, and whatever two other sides you're using are in being multiplied by 2, and then you use the angle that you're working with. So whatever side you start with, you end with that angle. So we're going to just jump right into it. I'm going to make a triangle real quick. There's not many examples, so I'm going to do this all in one take. So here we go. Make my triangle. You're definitely going to want a calculator, so make sure you have something that can calculate trig, okay? And let's say this is side or angle A, this is angle B, and this is angle C. So they told you that the sides of the triangle are 5 centimeters, and if they put a measurement, make sure you label correctly. B is 8, and C is 12. So if you notice on this one, we have a side, side, side. Okay, so we have to find the angles of the triangle, and you really only need to find 2 of them. Because if you find 2 of them, then you can find the third. So I'm going to write A, B, and C down here. Okay, and let's find A first. So we want to find angle A. And whenever we're trying to find the value of something, everything else has to be filled in. So we have side A, B, C, and B and C. So we're literally just going to fill in this information into the formula. So A squared is 25, and I'm going to write that we're solving for A here. We're capable of doing this math, so I'm going to do it in our head. I'm not going to write it out step by step. B squared is right here at 8, so that's 64. And then the other side is 12 squared, which is 144. Minus 2 times 8 times 12, and then cosine of A, which we don't know. Now here's the really important part. All of this, make like a dotted line, is separated by the subtraction sign. You have to pull this all over here first and then divide by all of this. So let's go ahead and just do some simplification. Maybe that will help. So 64 and 144 is 208. Minus, and we're going to do 2 times 8, which is 16 times 12, which is 192. So again, this 192 is attached to cosine of A by multiplication. So you have to subtract the 208 over first. This happens every time where people put 208 minus 192. These are separated. Okay, they're separate. This is multiplied to here, so you can't do it. So if you subtract that 205 over, or 208, sorry, you get negative 183. And then the 192 stands there. And you're going to divide the negative 192 over. So I'm just going to write it this way and not simplify it. And what you're trying to get is cosine of A. And if we remember from the last lesson, when we did this, we did the inverse cosine of both sides. So if you type this right here into your calculator, you'll get the answer for angle A. And angle A is 17.61. Oops, I didn't go 4 decimal places. Let me try it. We're in degree mode, so make sure you have that. So you're doing inverse cosine, so second cosine of 183 divided by 192. And that gets you 17.6124 degrees. Okay. I imagine I'm going to run out of room, so we're going to do this. Okay. So now let's find what B is. And it doesn't matter which one you do. So we're going to use this formula right here. They're all the same. It just changes the different variations that could go on depending on what side and angle combo you have going on. So B squared is 64. And then you have A squared, which is 25. And 12 squared, which is 144. Minus 2 times 5 times 12. And then cosine of angle B. Okay. So we're going to take all this and subtract it over. So we're going to do 64 minus 25 minus 144, which gets rid of these. Right here, we added them up. You don't have to do that. You can do all this at once. I was just trying to show you that you can't put these numbers with these numbers. So 64 minus 25 minus 144 is negative 105 equals negative, and if you multiply the 2, the 5, and the 12 together, you get 120. And then you're going to divide this over. So you have 105 divided by 120 equals cosine of B. And this is where you have to do the inverse cosine. So you do the inverse cosine, let's just say of the entire thing so I don't feel like writing it. That cancels the cosine, and now you can find the angle B. So inverse cosine of 105 divided by 120 is 28.9550 degrees. Okay, so then you're going to take 180 minus that 9550 minus the 17.6124, and angle C is 133.4326 degrees, okay? And let's talk about that. Side C is the longest side, so it should have the longest angle. A has the smallest side, so it should have the smallest angle. And then this is in the middle, and that's the case. So that's kind of like a way to check yourself. If those don't follow that pattern, like in the last section, then something's off. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. I am going to clear this goals out of the way so we can see where I have more room to work. Okay, so I want to draw a triangle first, okay? And it doesn't really matter how you draw it, okay? But I'm going to draw a triangle. Okay, and I want to label it. This is, let's say, angle A, and they're telling you that's 46.5 degrees. Angle B and angle C, and we don't have any other angle than these. And then with angle A, we also have side A and side C. Okay, let's see what we can do with this. So we have to solve the entire triangle, which means we need angle A, angle B, and angle C. Luckily, we already have angle A. Oops, let's put that there. And we have side A. We do not have side B. And we have side C. Now, you could use the law of sines here because you have a complete set, but we're not going to. So we're going to figure out what we can do with this. Oh, I have a typo. There we go. This makes a whole lot more sense. This is supposed to be B. So let's move this down here. Oops. Undo. Ooh, this makes a whole lot more sense. Okay. I have a typo. Let's delete that. Delete that. Delete that. Let's try again. Okay. So sorry about that. So side A we don't have, but side B we do, which is 10.5. So big mistake right there. So 10.5. We don't have side A, we have side B. So this is a side angle side situation. Okay, so if you have the two sides that touch the same angle, then you need to find this other side. So we're going to right away find side A. Okay, so the rule states that it's A squared equals B squared, And b squared is 10.5 squared, which is 110.25. And then we have this 18 squared, which is 324, minus 2 times the 10.5 times the 18 times the cosine of 46.5. Now, what is awesome, and it's the best part about this whole problem, is that you literally can type all of this in, okay? So you're going to type all of this in, but you also can do something else. So we want to find a. So we're going to square root it. So what you do is you just take this entire answer and put it in your calculator. So you do the square root of 110.25 plus 324 minus 2 times 10.5 times 18 times cosine of 46.5. If you enter that all into your calculator, the square root and everything, the value of a is 13.19. Oops. I have it on my notes to 3 decimal places, and I keep forgetting, so I need to do it. 110.25 plus 324 minus 2 times 10.5 times 18 times cosine of 46.5 is 13.1929. Okay. So all the sides are taken care of. So that's about as easy as we can make it because the sides are taken care of now. So we need to find an angle, and I'm just going to go alphabetically. So let's try to find angle B. So if you want to find angle B, you want to use basically whatever letter starts with. So if you want side B, you want this one. If you want angle B, you want this one. So we're going to go ahead and go run through this. So we already know B squared is 110. Oops. I'm really bad about clicking this little thing on the side. 110. Start over. 110.25 equals a squared, which is this number. So you're going to take 13.1929 and you're going to square it. So that's 174.0526 plus 324, because that's the c squared, minus 2 times the 13.1929 times the 18, and then cosine of b. All right, so same thing as we did before. You're going to subtract this over, and divide. So I'd like for you to finish this problem on your own. So go ahead and do that. If you get stuck, replay the video, restart the video. If you get done with it, then restart it and you can always fast forward. All right, so go ahead and pause the video now. All right, now that you're back, what your first step should have been is taking the 174.0526 and the 324 and subtracting it over. So we're going to take this whole thing and subtract over it. I'm not going to write it out because I think you can do this. That gives you 387.8026 equals, and then if you multiply the 13.1929 times 2 times the 18, you get negative 474.9444 cosine of b. Then you're going to divide that over. Okay? You're going to divide this over, which looks bad, and then you're going to do inverse cosine. If you do all that, you get, let me do it in my thing real quick. So you're dividing the 387 by the negative 474.944, which comes out as a decimal of 8.16522. Then you do second inverse, and then you plug in that answer, and you get B as 35.2620, as it rounds out that last term. So once you get that, you can find this value very easily. So you just take 180 minus the 46.5 minus the 35.262, and you get 98. Wow, I'm struggling to write. I am so sorry. You get 98.238, and I'm going to put a 0 just to show that it is technically to 4 decimal places. All right, so that is example 2. We have 2 more to go through. We're just going to do the whole thing instead of splitting up these notes like the last one. And actually, I realized I made a massive mistake on this one. So we're actually going to skip example 3. And we're going to go right to example 4. All right. So example 4 is a parallelogram. So all 4 sides, or 2 sides across from each other, are parallel. And it's this little symbol, if you remember that. And we're going to make 2 of these because these 2 are parallel. And the sides are equal distance. So the parallelogram has a length of, let's make this 3 and 3, and then this 5 and 5. And we're being told one of the angles is 50. So let's go with this. Let's call these angles 50, just because these look obtuse, right? And we need to find the length of the diagonals. So how in the world do we do that? Okay, so let's just draw this out. So, oops, I messed up when I did that. Okay, so let's diagonal 1 and diagonal 2. So let's put a label. I'm going to make this diagonal 1 and this diagonal 2. All right, so we want to find the length of each diagonal. Now, when we took this angle and we put this diagonal through it, it split the angle. And I'm going to keep that 50 there so you know this whole thing's 50. But since it split that angle, it's now 25 and 25. But you actually have 4 different triangles to work with here. So depending on how you work it, just kind of depends. So I'm going to use the highlighter tool to kind of work this thing through. So we have to figure out what these other angles are. So if this angle's 50 and this angle's 50, a parallelogram or a square or a rectangle is 360 degrees. So if we take 360 minus 100, and I'm saying 100 because you have the 50 for both those angles, that gives you 260 degrees. So then if you divide that by 2, you get 100 and, hold on, did I make a mistake? My notes are off. Sorry. You get, if you take 360 minus 100 and then divide that by 2, you get 130. So my notes on the internet might be off because I have it down as 120 for some reason. And I don't know why. Yeah, that's off. Okay, so this is right here, 130 degrees, depending how you look at it. Okay, so let's try to find, get a highlighter tool, diagonal 1 first. So let's try to find this first. Okay, so that's our goal. So the question is, what kind of information do we have and how can we do this? Okay, so if this is diagonal 1, let's use this as the triangle. Okay, maybe I should get that back out. Let me highlight this entire thing. So focus on that triangle. So, oops, if that is what we're going to focus on, okay, what is this angle? Well, it's going to be 130 divided by 2. So this is 65, and this would be 65 if we're focusing on just this triangle, knowing that this is 130 degrees and it's cut in half. Okay, and we want to find this length right here. Okay, well, we really don't need these angles for that. We really are just trying to find this side. And if I call this side angle A, then this would be side A. So to find diagonal 1, let's consider this A. And that would be A squared equals the 2 sides squared, which is 25 and 9. Okay, minus 2 times the sides that we have, which are 5 and 3, times cosine, and this angle is 50 degrees because it's not cut in half in this triangle. And if we want to find A, you just take the square root of it, and you're going to plug this in your calculator. So I want you to go ahead and take square root of 25, the square root of 25 plus 9 minus 2 times 5 times 3 times cosine of 50. Okay. So go ahead and do that. Now this doesn't have a unit on it, so we're just going to put units for everything. If you calculate all of this And you do the 25 plus 9 minus 2 times 5 times 3 times cosine of 50 degrees. You get a length of 3.8362 units. Now keep in mind, you can't do the unit circle, or my bad, the Pythagorean theorem. I was just thinking of this. Some of you might try to do the Pythagorean theorem, but with the Pythagorean theorem, it has to be a 90-degree angle. I want to write 90-degree triangle to shorthand this. It has to be a right triangle. Okay, so we got the length of diagonal 1. That's check. Okay, so let's find the other one. So I'm going to write it over here. So how do we find this length? Well, unfortunately, this yellow triangle is not going to help us. So I'm going to erase this. Just going to erase a lot of information and visualize it a different way. So let's make it blue. So we want to find this length. So we got to use this triangle. All right, and the reason is because this length was not part of this triangle, okay? It was cutting it through, but it doesn't help us unless you made this triangle a thing. So it's just a lot easier just to get a bigger or change the way you look at the side of the diagonal two and just use an entirely different triangle. So let's call this angle A now because we want to find this side, and we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. We just have to ask ourselves, what was this angle? Well, this angle was 130 degrees. So if we want to call it a squared again, you can. So a squared equals, and you're using pretty much the same thing. The two other sides, other than one you're trying to find, is 5 and 3. So squaring those is 25 and 9. Multiplying by those two sides again. And then cosine of 130 degrees. And this is where my notes online, the completed notes, are wrong because it said 120. And we know we can square root it because that gets us A. And we can go ahead and type that into our calculator. So we can do the square root of 25 plus 9 minus 2 times 3 times 5 times cosine of 130, which leads you to 7.2996 units. All right, so that is the law of cosines. You're either taking the square root and just putting everything in your calculator, or your steps are subtracting, dividing, and inverse cosine, which actually, let me write that down for you. Let's go back to this. When we were finding an angle, when you're trying to find an angle, your steps are to obviously set up the formula, so that's assumed, okay? You're going to subtract, you're going to divide, and on the third thing, you're going to do inverse cosine. Okay, those are your three steps, okay? So remember that. That's all I got for you. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.